And right now, it looks like he will be confirmed. Joining me now to discuss, André Bauer, CNN political commentator and former Lieutenant Governor of South Carolina, Maria Cardona, CNN political commentator and Democratic strategist. Good morning to both of you. André, it's been a minute. How you been, man?
Good morning. Doing great.
Good morning. Welcome back. Maria, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Welcome back. Maria, good to see you as well. André, let me start with you. And this comment from former Supreme Court Justice John Paul Stevens, in which he said of Judge Kavanaugh's partisan comments on the 27th of September, I think there were several commentators who have written pieces in which they suggest that he has demonstrated a potential bias involving enough potential litigants before the court that he would not be able to perform his full responsibility. It's not healthy to get a new justice who can only do a part-time job. What's your concern that despite the cleanup job he tried in the Wall Street Journal, that he has damaged himself as it relates to the impartiality of a Supreme Court justice?
Victor, I think so much of this is from what side you're looking at this. And of course, most conservatives feel like he was overly vetted, he was mistreated, and that he has for years had a stellar reputation from every person that ranks lawyers or judges, and that he's never had a complaint before. I mean, and so, you know, if I'm looking at from the other side, it's vastly different. And so I think you see a big divide in this country with folks that feel like Brett Kavanaugh is the right man, or either Dr. Ford wasn't treated justly. I mean, from my perspective, it seems like he was more than vetted. If you look at all the other folks that have applied for this job before, if that's what you would call it, he had almost 1,300 questions, which is almost 1,000 more than the average person that goes before the United States Senate to be confirmed for this job. So from a conservative's perspective that does support Judge Kavanaugh, I see a pattern where overly gone far beyond what most of them go through to be confirmed, and he has a record that from the bench perspective has never been questioned.
Maria, overly vetted, André says.
Well, you know, again, I actually do agree with André that this is, it depends on where you come from and in terms of your perspective, and that this has been very divisive. But that's exactly the problem, Victor. This has been one of the most divisive, hurtful confirmation processes and hearings that we have been through. I think it not only taints Brett Kavanaugh, it taints the Supreme Court, which should be one of the most venerable institutions that we have as a country. And so my question to Republicans is, couldn't you find somebody else who was equally as experienced and equally as capable as they believe he was, but without the atrocious black cloud that is now going to be following him into one of the highest institutions in the land, one that actually will divide this country for years and years to come? Do they really believe that this was that important to them to get this particular person onto the Supreme Court? Do they have no other lawyers that they believe could have been as good or better than him?
Let's have André answer that, and then I've got another question. Go ahead, André.
Well, this pick had an unblemished record. He had a superior rating in every aspect. And so, quite frankly, the Democrats created something that was not there. And it has not been substantiated. Look, with all due respect to Dr. Ford, she made an allegation, and several different bodies went to try to clarify it. She provided 4 different individuals, her friends, not his, who could not quantify or in any way back up what she said. In fact, they said just the opposite. And then the FBI did a check, and again, they couldn't find any factual evidence. Look, I have a daughter. I worry about anyone that makes this claim, and Dr. Ford has a legitimate claim that needs to be addressed. But we have a process in this country where you are innocent until proven guilty, and no factual information
That's actually not the case for this, André.
Let me ask you, André.
That's not the case for this.
André, you talked about your daughter.
This is not a criminal court.
Hold on, André, let me ask you about this daughter. André, you say you have a daughter, and you worried about anybody who make these types of claims. If your daughter made a claim and she put forward a list of a dozen people who corroborated, and investigators never spoke to one of those dozen, would you think that would be a valid investigation?
If my daughter provided her 4 best friends who she said were at a party, and her best lifelong friend said she never met Brett Kavanaugh, she never saw him, doesn't recall this party, I would ask my daughter to rethink what may have happened. Are you sure it was this individual? If you can't remember any other facts, if you can't remember any other facts, I wouldn't interrupt you while you're talking, number one.
you would
Wow.
ask your own
You would
daughter
not
to
believe your own
reconsider
daughter.
that
That
she was
is
sexually
If my daughter,
assaulted.
if my daughter 37 years later could only recant the individual, couldn't recant any
Astounding.
other information, then I would be worried, does she have her facts right? And
All right,
if
all right.
she
Okay.
gets her
All right,
best friend, who
I
her
think-
best
I
friend
think-
can't
wait a minute,
corroborate.
let me stop right here. Let me stop right here because we both made we've
Wow.
all heard the point, but I think this actually is unfair to Andre's daughter. So let's move on from this. You've made your point here. Let's
He
move to
brought it
something
up.
else. I know he did, but I don't want to go too far down this line because you do have an actual daughter. This isn't theoretical. Let's move on to something else. This is from Senator Grassley, who, when asked why there aren't more women on the Senate Judiciary Committee, he said, well, it's a lot of work. Don't forget, compared to a lot of committee meetings, we have an executive every Thursday, so it's a lot of work. Maybe they don't want to do it. Now, he was asked to clarify that later because people were a bit shocked that he said it. He said, well, it's a lot of work, too. Is that
My
why,
God.
Andre, there's never been a Republican woman on the Senate Judiciary, because it's a lot of work?
I think Senator Grassley probably misspoke. I've met him. He seems to be a pretty fair and reasonable guy, and I've never seen him be a real partisan individual. First off, he's one of the more moderate folks I think in the
That ain't
Senate.
partisan.
I've always kind of, I just meant to say he's always been a guy that I thought was fair and reasonable, and I don't think he meant it like that. I haven't talked to him. Actually, quite frankly, Victor, I haven't seen the footage, but I know it came off not the way anyone would want it to, and I'm sure he is regrets saying it.
Maria, quickly to you on one other thing. Jen Psaki, who's a CNN contributor, tweeted out, who wants to run for Senate in Maine? There will be an army of supporters with you. And President Obama's ambassador to the United Nations, Susan Rice, responded, me. First, are you convinced that the dissatisfaction with Senator Collins' vote will be still potent 2 years down the line when Collins is up for re-election, for Ambassador Rice or anybody else?
Oh, absolutely, Victor. I have already been invited by so many groups to go up and start knocking on doors for 2022 for Susan Collins. There is no question that this will have huge reverberating consequences for Republicans who voted the way they did. But the reason for that, Victor, is the two things that you just brought up on this segment. The first one is Grassley's disgusting sexist comments, which is exactly how so many women view the Republican Party in terms of the disdain that they have for women. So that has been clearly something that has been known and perceived from this Republican Party, and what they did with Brett Kavanaugh just underscores that.
Yeah.
But I need to address something, Victor.
10 seconds, because we got to go. 10 seconds.
Okay, 10 seconds. When you're a victim of sexual assault, you hardly ever have anybody else in the room. That is the nature of sexual assault. This does not happen publicly. So you very rarely are going to have corroborating people or witnesses who are going to say, oh, yeah, I was there. That's the problem
But if you
with this whole thing.
We've got to wrap it there. We got to wrap it there. Maria Cardona, André Bauer, thank you so much.